Thank you everyone for the immense amount of feedback on my last video. My objective was to open up a discussion within the Fortnite community, and I truly believe I pulled that off. There are people on my side, there are people against me, both in large numbers and with great arguments. This is the kind of stuff that Epic needs to listen to and reverberate through the studio to come up with some sort of final decision, if any. I'm incredibly proud to say I provided this sort of discussion for Epic to see, and I'm glad everyone is exchanging ideas. Even the extreme points of view I've allowed to exist in that environment, these are also important because they let us know where the unreasonable ideology begins and can work as a guidance tool for those of us who have remained objective and substantive. I appreciate everyone who has contributed so far, and I hope to see some sort of conclusion from Epic. So the first thing I want to do for this follow-up, I want to paraphrase my first video, refresh people on my views, and further elaborate on things that people weren't necessarily certain on that I was arguing. A lot of people were attacking an idea that I didn't even suggest. An argument that was frequently recycled was I wanted 100% accuracy at all times, plus hit scan regardless of movement or if you're spraying or not. That's a terrible idea. It's probably a worse shooting model than the current one, and no one is arguing to put that in the game. I've suggested multiple times, once in the source video, other videos, and in my Discord, that I believe Epic should implement projectiles, bullet drop, and 100% accuracy regardless of movement. Possibly a heavy recoil system to prevent from spraying, but I think casuals need spraying to really learn the gunplay, and possibly rack up cheap kills that are going to keep them interested in the game. My next point was building, which was universally agreed on as being the game's skill gap. That being the case, I was arguing, why can it only be utilized to its full extent during mid to late game? What I mean by this is you're not able to build outside of maybe a few walls and a ramp during early game. Once you've ran out of mats, you've got to depend on the game's shooting model to rack up your kills or to win that fight that you're currently still in. Regardless of position, you need to rely on this shooting model, and I've been very critical of it. The current shooting model is also generally agreed on as being luck-based. It's just people might not necessarily agree that this is what the game needs or not. I've had people in my Discord argue that first shot accuracy is a counter to Bloom, and if you run out of mats, you can just utilize first shot accuracy if you don't want to deal with spraying. I've linked them this video, and they came back to tell me that they don't like first shot accuracy anymore. So I remain objective in that video, and you're welcome to disagree and give me your feedback on that. My suggested gameplay improvement for building was to increase material gathering percent by at least 100%. Right now, the balance between mid-game fights and farming materials is just not fun. It is simply not fun to have to farm materials as long as you're required to in the current state of the game to have a fighting chance in your next fight. We need to spend less time farming materials and more time fighting and potentially winning fights if this game wants to remain interesting across the board. Eventually, people are going to get tired of this mandatory time you must sacrifice every game to farm materials, and in the end, who are you hurting by this? Who are you hurting by increasing materials across the board for everyone to benefit from equally? My next main point was about shotgun rebalancing and how it could hurt the game. And before I call these consistent again, I want to make this crystal clear. I played Fortnite 2 days ago for a good number of games, and for the most part, I was hitting 100 plus headshots with a pump. I don't think there was a single instance where I hit a 9 the entire night, or an 8, whatever it is now. Now, if the weapon is to blame for the inconsistency, how is that possible? If you are hitting 9s, you need to be recording your gameplay and watch it back. I promise you these shotguns are more consistent than you think, and you need to stop blaming them for human error. With that said, shotguns are mainly used in Fortnite because of their consistency, both in large damage and time to kill. If you nerf these things into the ground, you're going to move into a game where you rely on sprayable, bloom-based weapons like any other close-range weapon in the game. Random spray patterns are impossible to master, and this will turn early game fights into a luck-based fight more than it already is. The shotgun is the closest weapon we have right now for early game, close-range, skill-based fights. I agree with the pump nerf because double pump was way too effective last patch, or however many patches ago it was. I don't really play the game. I don't think the shotgun nerf was fair for the tac shotty, which can only shoot as fast as the double pump can for a fraction of the damage. I don't personally mind because I don't pick up the tac ever. I never used to. So those were basically my points in the video. You're welcome to debate it, and for the most part, people have. Now I want to talk about where my opinions have changed, or I suppose I should say where one opinion has changed throughout the entire 8 days of debating this non-stop. While I still believe that my suggested change for Bloom is objectively better as far as consistency and skill based, I don't think it needs to be changed. I made a point in my video that changing core gameplay mechanics is a really bold move. It could potentially kill the game on the spot. I'm not entirely certain, and I don't feel comfortable making the guess that Epic needs to change this core gameplay mechanic to appeal to people that want consistent gunfights. As of right now, the current state of the game, Bloom really isn't that big of a deal to me. I've taken a lot of time to master aim, and tracking my aim is as good as I want it to be. And I really don't deal with Bloom that much. Yeah, I can even full spray and hit most of my shots. I don't think it's an overwhelming problem. My point that I was trying to make is I don't think randomness should ever play a role in any PvP shooter ever. And I still agree with that, but I think it's just way too late in the game's life to make a bold change like this. I don't know how it would be perceived, and I don't know if Epic should do this. If you truly think you have an argument to change my mind about building or the shotgun nerfs, you're welcome to bring it to my Discord. I'm definitely open to discussion. It's just, I might need a little bit of a break because I've been debating this for a week straight and it's getting a little bit old. My mind is completely open to change, and I want you to give your best shot at it. This is my rebuttal section of my video. Unfortunately, I didn't get a lot of response videos. I would say probably the highlights that I'm going to show here are an extreme disagreement and an extreme agreement. Both sides I don't agree with. We're going to review it. I'm going to respond to it. I'm going to try to make this short, not going to watch the whole video. Okay, so over here on YouTube, this is probably the obvious one that I'm going to respond to. It's the most popular. I would consider this one the extreme disagreement, but don't worry. I'm not cherry picking. I'm going to display something on my side that is just as illogical. But let's get it. Oh, actually, before we go, don't let this throw off your views. A lot of people disagree for good reason, but don't let that take away the ability to objectively listen to this and think for yourself. Think, is this guy really making good points or not? That is important. Disagreement is important. Just because you're in the minority doesn't necessarily mean that you're in the wrong. Let's continue.
Another day, another video complaining about Fortnite.
Oh, by the way, I'm probably going to be skipping a lot of this video because I don't want to extend this video 15 more minutes. I'm going to skip my parts. I'm going to highlight his points, and then we're going to move on.
This video in particular, though, has gotten a lot of traction in the past couple of days, and I'll say, unlike my last video talking about someone talking shit about Fortnite, this guy has actually played the game. I think this video is very interesting, though. The creator, Jed, or Ged, I'm not sure how to pronounce that, has some solid points that I often see reflected by the community. Most of these ideas sound good, but often neglect to take the other side of the arguments into perspective. So let's start watching Ged's video, and I'll tell you exactly why he's wrong.
Okay, that was the intro. I wanted you guys to hear it. Now I'm going to be skipping to his first point. The first point that I made was casual players are being appealed to, and then I springboarded that into Bloom is a bad mechanic. Everyone should agree with me. Every single person watching this video right now should agree with that statement.
I don't agree with that statement. So Bloom is in Fortnite because the developers want it there. If they didn't want it there, it would be gone. The counter to Bloom is first shot accuracy. You know, the thing they tested in tangent with the community to come up with a solution to counter Bloom. With first shot accuracy, you can literally acquire a 100% accuracy rate on your target. All you have to do is use.
I'm not going to bother addressing first shot accuracy here. I'm going to leave a link to a video where I addressed first shot accuracy when it was first implemented, tell you why it's a bad mechanic, and you can agree and disagree here. I'm not going to waste my time right now. His next point is how I used to think building was a problem, and then I changed my opinion to building not being a problem. So let's hear what he has to say. I no longer agree that building should be adjusted.
So hold on a second. You literally made a video saying that building is hurting Fortnite, and now you're making a video saying building is fine? Why should we be taking you seriously when you clearly never knew what you were talking about? And I mean that in the most respectful way, dude. But you literally have no credibility and come off as just someone who complains for the sake of complaining because you've already proven that the way you think is wrong. But I mean, let's...
Okay. This is hands down his worst argument he makes in the entire video, and a lot of people are critical about this in the comments. Every single person at some point in their life has changed their opinion about something, especially when educated on it, He references a clip in his part 2 video. It's not in this one. It was ironic that he included it because it was the same exact day that I uploaded that video that said building was a problem, and it was the same exact clip that changed my mind. It was the clip of Summit trying to kill Myth, and Myth just one by oneing up, just maintaining high ground. That was actually the clip that changed my mind about building, and then I went in myself. I remember I loaded up Save the World, trying to learn how to one by one. I watched a lot of Ninja. Ninja taught me to keybind all of my building. And then I really started to learn the skill gap. And to have an open mind like that and to be open for change is extremely important when you're in a position like me right now that is trying to influence discussion and change within the game. To say that I lose credibility because I took the time to educate myself and change my opinions accordingly is probably the most flawed A to C logic I've ever seen. Okay, so this next point, he just transitioned into it. This is what I was talking about. Fortnite needs more materials. Blitz was an amazing thing. Let's see what he has to say.
I see a lot of people complaining about this, and well, I think they are forgetting something about Fortnite. See that right there? That says Battle Royale. In Battle Royale games, you are supposed to loot, scavenge, and hunt for the resources you need to succeed. This has been a staple in the genre ever since.
I will address this later when he contradicts it. Just remember his point right now is that we shouldn't have increased material gathering because collecting resources is a staple of the genre. Okay, I think, yeah. The point I'm making right here is that Epic, I return to the point that Epic is appealing to people that have never played video games before, people that are not great at gaming. They're appealing to those players, giving them a chance so they stay and invest into their product. That's the point I'm making right here. I believe he counters that, or attempts to, in their lives.
What are you talking about, mate? Fortnite is constantly adding incentives for hardcore players, including the rank system they had.
Which, by the way, that rank system that they added was just... no gameplay mechanics were changed whatsoever, which, by the way, the current gameplay that exists right now is the exact same and appeals to the casual player, as I've demonstrated through multiple points. The showdown mode was the exact same. No gameplay changes were made, still appealing to casual players, just with a different name.
Just a little while ago. Also, the E3 tournament. Epic Games knows that Fortnite has huge potential in the competitive gaming scene, and they will definitely be doing...
A tournament existing does not mean that the game is competitive at its core. Just because they can pull in a lot of viewers does not make the game a good competitive environment. It's not really a point. Again, A to C logic doesn't make sense.
Whatever they can to get more people to participate in it. With the additions of turbo mode and auto match switching, can you really say that they don't want us to build? Or
this point doesn't make much sense. The turbo and material swap mechanics, they were implemented to help the casual player that can't build very well, or people that lack the awareness to keep track of their materials mid-fight. Also something that was frequently suggested to counter my more materials argument. People say that resource management is a huge part of that skill gap. In this situation, he's arguing the opposite. Remember back when the game made you switch manually? That was a skill gap in itself, because you had to have the awareness in the middle of a fight while you're trying to aim and keep track of positioning and whatnot. You have to also keep track of your materials and know exactly when to switch. I used to love that because people would run out of mats because they didn't have the awareness to pick up that they were running low, and they would run right off and you'd win the fight. That was great. And I always switch my mats on time because I was constantly just checking down, see how many mats I have, and then counting my builds. Ever since auto mat switching like that, you don't even have to worry about that anymore. And it's appealing to the people that don't have the awareness to pick up on that. So auto mat switching and turbo building doesn't necessarily mean that they're promoting an environment where you're supposed to build. This is another thing that appeals to the casual player.
Are you just saying that because your feelings are hurt because you have to gather mats for longer per game?
This was not a substantive argument. I'm not going to treat it as one. Let's move on.
I never really played H1 like that.
Okay, I think the point that I just made was that H1Z1 changed core gameplay mechanics, killed the game on the spot. That is true. And I believe he's mentioning that.
I mean, I did, but not enough to talk about it, so I won't. But what I will talk about is what you said earlier about the nerfs to shotguns. A pump shotgun doing over 200 headshot damage was dumb. I'm sorry.
Which is an opinion.
Most players, even Daquan, who is most likely the best shotgun user in the game, agrees with me.
Daquan has opinions.
Especially when that shotgun is a green or a blue weapon. It doesn't make sense that it would be that much better than the gold or purple variant.
White and green and blue and purple and gold represent rarity, not effectiveness. I think that's very important. A green pump shotgun is significantly more common than a heavy shotgun. Supposed to symbolize rarity, not power. Next point. Skill-based matchmaking. They wanted to keep the new players away from the good players so they would stay and invest in their product.
Oh.
Okay, that was the point I just made. They wanted to appeal to casual players so the good players are not beating them every single time, so the new players would stay. And right here he's about to suggest that skill-based matchmaking should exist.
Oh, you don't say. Fortnite wants to make skilled players play with skilled players and less skilled players play with less skilled players? You mean like every other multiplayer game ever made?
Incorrect. What about the mention of every other battle royale made? Perhaps skill-based games like Overwatch, CSGO. They have skill-based matchmaking because it's a game that heavily focuses on skill-based mechanics. It's not skill-based and competitive at its core, but you're trying to push skill-based matchmaking. This is one contradiction that I actually just realized, but the second contradiction is that, remember back when he said you have to farm resources because it's a staple of the genre? Does that not apply here? Does it not apply that a staple of the genre is the survival of the fittest theme, where the people who are more fit to survive win? Or are you just trying to make it convenient for the people who are not fit to survive to play better and to win and stand a chance against people they would originally never stand a chance against if it wasn't for the completely casual gameplay? Going back to the material argument, I'm suggesting that we still should implement the staple of the genre and farm our resources. I'm just saying the balance between farming and fighting people is not in a good spot. We're spending too much time farming materials right now and not enough time fighting. And when we do fight and we don't spend enough time farming, we're going to run out of materials and we're guaranteed to lose that fight at that point.
And this is bad because why exactly? Fortnite is terrible for newcomers. I agree with you there. If I were a noob, I probably wouldn't even touch the game because there's no way I can personally have fun getting rocked all the time.
I didn't even slightly suggest that. If anything, from my video, you should have picked up that it's a casual, friendly environment that promotes new players to come in and rock the good players because the gameplay is not based on skill.
They certainly don't want to step on the toes of the immensely large player base they already have, but finding a way to please newcomers wouldn't be such a bad thing, would it? So long as they don't take anything away from the better players, I really don't see how anyone could take issue with this.
But what about when they have? Because they have. What about Bloom? What about materials being nerfed patch after patch? What about buffing C4s to counter building? What about increased grenade throw time to counter building? What about the minigun? What about the LMG to counter building? They're specifically adding these things to counter building because it's so potent in the game right now because it's the only skill gap the game has to offer. To suggest that they're not taking away from the skilled players is simply wrong. It is observably untrue if you read the patch notes. And as a player that has a decent understanding of the game and how mechanics work, you should agree with that.
Unless they're an elitist. Yeah, yeah.
That was a little bit awkward. He's trying to say I'm an elitist, which I suppose in the context that he's using it in is I am a better player at the game, trying to dictate how worse players play at the game and trying to influence skilled mechanics into a battle royale. In that context, sure, I'm an elitist, but is it better to be an elitist or is it better to be an egalitarian and suggest that all players should be equal across the board regardless of skill, regardless of game knowledge? I definitely think elitist is the better option when it comes from a gameplay perspective. Next point. I know it's opinion, but I want to say it's just an objective statement.
It's not.
This is actually the next point that he addresses. I mean, my video played for multiple minutes without any commentary, so that's why I'm skipping to the end. Which, by the way, I don't think that qualifies as fair use, but I'll let it slide.
An objective statement. It's your opinion. And
and by the way, I preface that statement with, I know it's opinion, but I want to say it's an objective statement. He's trying to inform me of something that I am aware of. I said it was opinion. An opinion is not an objective statement. I'm aware of this. That was a little bit of banter. What I was suggesting was, objectively, H1Z1 is better than Fortnite as far as skill-based mechanics and separating the good from the bad. Objectively, that is true. That's an objective statement. That's not an opinion.
Yeah, Ged, you're a very illogical person.
As I've disproved with this rebuttal.
And I hope you watch this video and realize that there are a lot of flaws in your logic, and Fortnite is not dying anytime soon. You know it, I know it. It may die to you, it may die to your friends, but it's not dying, bro. It's not. Cut it out.
Well, when I see streamers' numbers go down by a significant amount across the board and follower rate has decreased dramatically, it does lead me to believe that the game is dying. People are losing interest in the game. They're not watching the streamers, especially at a point where everyone's trying to get better at the game and practice for this $100 million prize pool they just announced. Looking back at my previous video, I definitely think I should have backed up the claim that Fortnite is dying. I still fully stand by that. I saw the numbers. I'm probably going to flash them on the screen now. Streamers are losing numbers significantly lower than they were a few months ago. Their follower rate has decreased dramatically. People are losing interest in the game. In the end, no one can really say for sure how the game is doing because Epic doesn't release their numbers. The secondary reason I titled my video like that is because it gets clicks. People need to be clicking on that video. For someone like me that's trying to start a discussion in the Fortnite community, I want people clicking on the video. I want people contributing. You could argue clickbait, and I would agree. It was all a part of my plan. But to be clear, it wasn't a baseless claim. I just didn't provide the evidence because I thought that the actual reasons of the game struggling was far more important than if the game is dying or not. So that was his video. That was my rebuttal. My next video that I'm going to showcase is from the complete opposite side of the spectrum, what I would consider an extreme view on my side. This is also something I want to include so it doesn't appear as I'm cherry picking and trying to make generalizations about people that just don't agree with me. I want to also include the extreme view so we can all find a happy middle and come to some sort of reasonable conclusion that we can all agree on. That is my goal here. Now, Montic, I know you're watching this video. You saw this coming. This is someone that has a 36-minute video. He agrees with every single point of mine. Okay, listen, it's okay to agree with every single point, but if you watch this video, it becomes very apparent that this was not thinking for yourself, which is something I encouraged in the first 30 seconds of my video. Okay, so I'm gonna go, I think it's right in the beginning.
A couple days ago, we're actually on the 10th, so about 6 days ago. It's called Fortnite is Finally Dying, which in my personal opinion, Fortnite is finally dying. And I'm not saying in a bad way or a good way, but he made this video. I haven't checked it out yet. I want to see what he's talking about.
He says he hasn't checked it out yet. I'm going to show a few examples how I don't necessarily think that's true. Right here, this is right when I'm about to mention Blitz after saying Fortnite needs new materials. I actually begin to say the word, and then he practically says the same exact thing before I say it. To utilize the skill gap.
Yep.
I'm pretty sure it goes without saying that Fortnite just needs more materials.
Exactly what I'm talking about. Needs more materials. And I think he's just about to talk about Blitz, so let's continue.
Blitz was a beautiful thing. Blitz V1, mind you. Blitz V2 was a flop.
Yes. Blitz was phenomenal. Blitz was the thing that we actually needed as a base game, except with the storm, but for the resources. Because you were able to collect like 125% more resources in that game mode than any other game mode at the time. With V1, of course. And the V2 flopped. It was like 50%. You couldn't get anything better. You really couldn't get that much better materials.
150% material gathering to only like 50%. Like little things like this tell me that Epic doesn't. This is what I'm talking about. He said that I was going to talk about Blitz before I even had said it. Which kind of leads me to believe that, yeah, he has seen the video. And then he proceeds to practically say the exact same thing as me. And that's pretty much what this entire video is. 36 minutes is basically him agreeing with me. There is one situation where he disagrees with me, and I will showcase that.
That's why, me personally, the only two weapons I use that are skill-based is the pump and the scoped AR.
Huh. You don't say. Let's skip a little bit forward in my video and see what I have to think about that. The only guns I like are the pump shotgun and the scoped AR. Oh, you do? I didn't know that, Jed.
Oh, he does use the same weapons as me. Oh, good, my man. Good job. See, those are...
Like, this is what I'm talking about. It kind of hurts to watch this. Like, it's very clear he's not thinking for himself.
Those are the only two weapons. They're actually good in my opinion. This man understands. Jed, I love you, bro.
I love you too. Don't get me wrong, I don't think the shotgun is the most skill-demanding weapon in the game, but it's...
I kind of think that the pump is the most skilled.
Boom, we got some disagreement. Thank goodness. Thank you, Montic. You think the pump is the most skill-demanding weapon? That is totally fine. You can have that opinion, and I'm proud of you for having that opinion, and it wasn't influenced by me. As I said in the video, I don't think it takes a lot of skill to use, but I definitely think it takes more skill than spamming an AR. I'd say probably my top 3 guns as far as skill is probably sniper, scoped AR, and then pump. But we're going to move on to the last video that I'm going to respond to. This is probably the most intellectual response I got. This guy has his head screwed on right, and I appreciate his input.
And building being the feature that tests your skill the most. I get it, he probably pounded the pavement, did his research, put on Cerebro to find answers, and had a Jimmy Neutron brain blast. That's cute. Sometimes the real answer lies right under your cup without you realizing it. If you haven't figured out the real reason by now, you must be deaf. Open your f***ing ears. I've been playing the answer during this whole video. It's the f***ing Season 3 and 4 lobby music. This is why people are leaving Fortnite Epic Games. Bring back the Season 1 and 2 music. That shit was epic as hell. It gave me my first boners, cured my sociopathic tendencies, and gave me friends. This new music gave me erectile dysfunction. This is why people hate your game, Epic Games. Bring back the old music.
This man has his head screwed on right. He knows exactly why Fortnite is dying. This is someone that is in the intellectual right. But in all seriousness,
anyways, that's all I have. I love you guys.
Thank you so much for watching.
I will see you guys in my next video. Peace out, everybody.